it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and today we're going to be doing my July reading wrap-up and my August TBR look ahead. There's a lot to talk about here, mostly for August and not so much for July, although in July, let's just get to it. In July, I read a total of 7 books. 3 of them were physical, 1 was digital, and 3 were audiobooks. That's 1,701 pages read and 77 hours, 47 minutes, and 45 seconds listened on audiobook hours. That's a lot of hours. 1 5-star, 4 4-stars, 1 3-star, and 1 2.5-star. Now, before I go and talk about all the books that I read, I want to explain a fun thing that I'm going to be trying out. So I've created this new kind of rating system with some of my favorite and least favorite characters from books that I've read, some of my favorite books that I've read. And I kind of ranked them from low to high based on the character and the book that they're in, the role that they play in that book, and then kind of gave a quick summary of how I'm going to use those to rate books. Now, I'll probably only do this for my monthly wrap-ups. Unless I really, really, really love it, then I'll incorporate it into the weekly wrap-ups. But for now, I'm going to test it out in the monthly wrap-ups. So let me know what you think of this in the comments below, because I'm really excited about it. It's such a fun idea. And also let me know what other characters you think I should add, because I want to add more, so it's an in-depth rating system. So starting from low and going up to high, I'm just going to read through the characters quickly and just very quickly talk about how I'm going to use these, and then I'll go into the actual books that I read in July. So, starting with Wickham from Pride and Prejudice. Wickham is the absolute worst. He was a scoundrel of a character in Pride and Prejudice, and so for the Wickham books, these are books that I didn't like at all, books that I should have DNF'd, and I will caveat that with saying I'm going to try to go back to my previous method of reading where I didn't DNF books and just try to push through them, because these books, even if they are the worst book you've ever read, they're still someone's blood, sweat, and tears and dreams, and I feel like they deserve the chance to at least read through fully and give it, I don't think you can, I feel like it feels weird to me to be able to rate these books without reading the entire book. So Wickham is the books that I had to force myself through, but should have DNF'd if I'm DNFing, but didn't. Next, the next tier we have Black Jack Randall, and Jack Randall is a love to hate character. He is a villain that you absolutely despise. He's from Outlander, if you didn't know. So he's that villain that you just absolutely despise. You hate him. You cringe every time his name is mentioned. But you also totally admire the author for creating such a well-written character. Diana Gabaldon wrote Black Jack Randall so well that you just cringe every time. You don't feel 1 ounce of sympathy for him. So for me, the Black Jack Randall books are the books that are kind of like in the 2-star range, where they have problems for me. I had a lot of problems with them, but I can also see why people like them. And a lot of times I'm happy that people do like these books, because like I said, they're authors' dreams. So our next tier is the Murderbot tier from Murderbot Diaries, and this Murderbot was a bot that just loved watching his soap opera, Sanctuary Moon, didn't want to have to deal with people, and for me this is kind of like those, what people would call guilty pleasure books, or those books that were, you know, good but not great. They were good but you've read better, those kinds of books. They're not the best books you've ever read, but they were fun to read. Our next tier is the MBOT tier. MBOT is from the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson, and I've only read book 1 in Skyward so far, so this is based off of the first book, and so it's great now, but if you've read Brandon Sanderson books and series, you know anything can happen at any time, so we'll see what happens. So great now, we'll see what happens. This is either for like kind of midway through a book or a series where it's great but can change at any moment. Next we have the Lord John Grey tier. I love Lord John Grey. He's also from the Outlander series, and he's such a fantastic character. He starts off as bad and kind of like a villain, but then as we get to know him through future books, you gain sympathy and he becomes kind of the good guy in these books. You get to know him better and you start to like him more. He's one of my favorite characters in these books. So for the Lord John Grey tier, these are kind of books that have started off meh, but then got better as you continued reading them. They kind of picked up pace. A lot of times they're the slow burns, they're the slow starts. They pick up pace as you go along, as you get to know the characters and the settings and the story really starts to take place. They're the books that just have that absolute fire ending that you love. Next up we have the Kelsier tier. Kelsier is from the Mistborn series, mostly The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, and he's one of my favorite Sanderson characters. He's my favorite character in the Mistborn series, but we mostly only get him in book 1, so this is going to be reserved for the first book of a series. This is one of those ratings where the first book was absolute fire. My favorite book in the series, or just like an absolute great start to the series. You can't wait to read the rest of the series because of how good it was. And then the last tier that I have right now is the Jamie Fraser tier. Jamie is obviously from Outlander. He's one of our main characters. He's our hero of the Outlander series, kind of. Jamie is a timeless character. You just love him more and more as the books go on, and he gets better with age, and he's just absolutely fantastic. I will never see myself not liking Jamie. And so for me, this is a book that I absolutely loved. One of my favorite reads of the month, favorite reads of the year, maybe favorite reads ever. A book that I know I'm going to want to reread at some point, and so that's the Jamie Fraser tier. So now that we've gone through all of the different tiers, I'm going to go through the books that I read in July and talk about the tier that I gave it and why. So first up we have Fireborn by Rosaria Munda, and this I gave the Kelsier tier. This is first book in the series and I absolutely love this book. I haven't read the rest of the series yet, but this book was so fire I can't wait to read the rest and see where it goes. Next up we have The Paris Architect, and I gave this book the Murderbot ranking, which is kind of, this is a nice historical fiction book. It was good. I enjoyed it, but I've read better historical fictions. Next up we have The City We Became, and this one for me is an MBOT ranking. I absolutely loved this book, but I have no idea where this series is going to go, so we'll see where this series goes. If N.K. Jemisin builds up steam further in the series, or if it's going to turn into a Kelsier tier where the first book was the best. I haven't heard anything about the rest of the series, so I can't even go on a premise of what is going to happen. Next up, we have Half Sick of Shadows by Laura Sebastian. This book was so disappointing to me. I gave this a Wickham Blackjack rankings. Wickham for me because it was so disappointing. I was so excited to read this, but it was so disappointing. I had to push myself through it. It was a sludge at times. But also Blackjack because I know a lot of people really love this book. And if you don't have a lot of the Arthurian legend knowledge that I had going into this, then you might enjoy it a little bit more. Next up we have Mansfield Park, and I gave this the Lord John Grey ranking because it was a very slow start. It took you a lot to get into it, but once you did, Jane Austen was on a roll. So Lord John Grey for Mansfield Park. Next up we have the ACOTAR book, A Court of Thorn and Roses, and I gave this Murderbot ranking. This was not the best book that I've read, but I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series because it was enjoyable. A lot of people would call the ACOTAR and Sarah J. Maas books in general guilty pleasures, so I feel comfortable giving this the Murderbot ranking. Drums of Autumn is a hard one for me. because I've read most of the rest of the books, I know kind of what happens. If this was a first read for me, I would give it the MBOT ranking. We don't know what's going to happen. We still don't know what's going to happen in book 9, but this is only book 4, so that's still hard to do. It's not the first book. I mean, I would go between MBOT and Murderbot because it's a lot of people call the Outlander books a guilty pleasure. So we'll say Murderbot / MBOT for this one. My favorite book that I finished reading in July was Fireborn. That was the only 5-star book I had, and I absolutely loved that book. I'm currently reading the 5th season right now, and that's going to be one of my favorite books this whole year, so that is also kind of in my favorites. Now, carryovers into August from July. I'm currently reading Malice by John Gwynne, and I'm really enjoying getting to know these characters and the setting, and now the story's starting to pick up, so I'm really enjoying that. Like I mentioned, 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, part of my Jemisin July, carrying over to August. I am enjoying this book so much. Like I said, it's going to be one of my favorite books this entire year. And also City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I'm just starting this tonight. I haven't technically, at the filming of this, I haven't even started this yet because I haven't technically finished Drums of Autumn, but I have 1 hour left on the audiobook for that, so I will be finishing that and starting in on City of Brass audiobook. So more on that later. So then my August TBR. This is a ginormous TBR filled with many, many buddy reads. So buckle in and get ready. I'm going to go through these really quickly because you'll hear more about them in August. Akamath, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 2 in the ACOTAR series. And this is going to be a birthday read for my friend Vish at Books with V. I'm going to link her channel down below. Go check her out if you haven't yet. Next up, we have Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. This is also a birthday read for my friend Mur at Mur Reads. I'll link her channel down below too. The Fiery Cross, which is book 5 in the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. Obviously, you know that's a reread for me. I'm rereading all of the books before book 9 comes out, and I can't wait to see where this story goes because I really don't remember. Empire of Black and Gold by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a read-along on Alan at Library of Alexandria's Discord, which I will link down below. I'm really excited to get to this because this sounds totally different than anything I would pick up before. Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This is book 1 in the series, and this is a buddy read with Jessie at the Bookish Mom. We're going to be doing a live show about this once we finish this book. This is a reread for Jessie, one of Jessie's favorite books, and I can't wait to read this. This has been waiting for me for so long, and I'm so excited. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. This is my Patreon pick for August. Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative was my August Patreon pick. Excuse me. And she picked this book, so we're going to be buddy reading this together. And I think Sharon from Sharon Dwyer is also going to join us for this buddy read, so more to come on that later. Ink and Bone by Rachel Kane. This is going to be a buddy read with, again, Sharon at Sharon Dwyer. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. This is a read-along with Allie at Kisty Reads, Stephanie at Miss Richards Reads, Sharon, and Kate at the Almost Book Doctor. We're going to be reading this over 3 months from August to October, so I'm really looking forward to get to that classic. Emma by Jane Austen. This continues our Jane Austen read-along on Alan at Library of Alexandria's Discord. Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This is the first book in the Expanse series, and this is supposed to be a buddy read with Jessie at the Bookish Mom, although I don't know if she'll remember, so it might be a lone read for me. Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. This is another buddy read on Ellen at Library of Alexandria's Discord, and I can't wait for this because I love Arthurian legend stuff. The People We Keep by Alan Larkin. This is Book of the Month pick. This is my pick for June, so I'm going to be reading this and reviewing that for my Book of the Month series. And then The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. This was a Book of the Month add-on that I had. I think I'm going to be skipping my August pick because this was an additional pick, so I can skip a month. And nothing really stood out to me in August, so I think I'm skipping August and just gonna, I might move the personal librarian over to my August reads, or my September reads, and pretend that was my August pick. And then lastly, I have The Six of Crows duology by Lee Bardugo, and this includes Six of Crows and The Crooked Kingdom. And The Crooked Kingdom will be a buddy read over on Mitch at Michael Knipp's Discord. And so that is my July reading wrap-up, August TBR. Let me know if you've read any of these books in the comments below, what you thought. If anything on my August TBR sounds good to you and you want to buddy read it, let me know and I'll set up a buddy read on the Discord. As always, my Discord and Patreon information will be in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.